Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full up front. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for the next exciting episode as you tell us of the Dr. Sky Experience. We're here on Talk Radio 77, WABC, of course. If you'd like to send us an email, you can send me one at drsky@wabcradio.com, of course. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to listen to so many of the archival programs and not only this particular show, the Dr. Sky Experience, but also the many great hosts that occupy this radio station 24/7. And to do that, go to wabcradio.com or simply redappleaudionetworks.com. As we continue to move through time and space, ladies and gentlemen, always exciting guests from our realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather, stories of American exceptionalism, and celebrity guests in the mix. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our helmsmen, both Tony and Bill, who navigate this incredible signal of 77 WABC to the nation, the world, and, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure, out to the cosmos. As we continue to move through time and space with our 2-hour special guest, we continue to talk about something that's near and dear to everybody in a very sad way. 24 years ago, 246 people went to sleep in preparation for their morning flights. 2,606 people went to sleep in preparation for work in the morning. 343 firefighters went to sleep in preparation for their morning shift. 60 police officers went to sleep in preparation for morning patrol, as well as 8 paramedics who went to sleep in preparation for the morning shift. Sadly, none of them saw past 10 a.m. on September the 11th, 2001. The 24th anniversary of that sad event. In one single moment, life may never be the same. As you live and enjoy the breaths you take today and tonight, before you go to sleep in preparation for your life tomorrow, simply kiss ones you love, snuggle a little tighter, and never take 1 second of your life for granted. This 2-hour show is our solemn tribute to the 3,000 souls which perished on 9/11 and the countless people who are suffering medical and psychological issues from the worst terror attack, of course, on U.S. soil. And sadly to report the recent assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, a cruel and despicable act. Is America swirling down the drain in violence from political differences? We dedicate these 2 hours to the spirit of our American exceptionalism, but ladies and gentlemen, we need healing in our nation. And our next guest, Dr. Carol Lieberman, she's described as America's psychologist. She's here for the 2 hours to talk to us about many subjects indeed that may calm our nerves and also put us in a more positive direction. Dr. Carol Lieberman, the doctor who helps you stay sane in an insane world. A little background on Dr. Carol Lieberman. Her multidimensional career as an internationally renowned media psychologist is always leading edge. On TV, radio, and the internet, in film, print, and as a speaker, and as the first shrink-on-board airline and flight entertainment. She comes to us, ladies and gentlemen, and talking more about the subjects at hand. Since 9/11, recognizing what the world needs most in helping coping with the ultimate monster in the closet, terrorism, Dr. Carol Lieberman has devoted herself to rousing people from denial and giving them the psychological tools they need to survive. One of her latest books, Coping with Terrorism, Dreams Interrupted, has been recently released in London by European Atlantic Publications, and she has used her unique blend of therapeutic skills to create, as we mentioned before, Shrink on Board, a relaxation channel which soothes fear in the air and on the ground in the first terrorist stress hotline. With that, we welcome Dr. Carol Lieberman. Good evening to you on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience. How are you?
You're very welcome. I just want to clarify one point. I'm a psychiatrist, not a psychologist.
Well, let me make sure that I say that correctly, because that often interruption, I've gotten tripped up before on that. So we say psychiatrist, correct? There you go.
Yes.
Well, Doctor, it's good to have you, as we mentioned in the short bio, but you're everywhere, all over the media. You have a lot of extensive backgrounds in many of the subjects that we're going to talk about. But your reaction, of course, as we go to the big news story of the week, and sad, the cruel and despicable act that we talk about, what happened Wednesday, your reaction to this, and I'm sure so many people are either raging, they're sad, they're despondent, they don't know what to really think. And let me hear what you think about this. I mean, horrible. That's my word.
You're talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, presumably.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, because 9/11, of course, is also a tragic, sad situation. But Charlie Kirk, I actually had the honor of meeting him, talking with him, because he was a guest on my radio show. And he shines. He shines from within. I mean, he is the real deal. This wasn't like, he wasn't just saying these things. He was totally, well, first of all, humble, and second of all, totally, passionate about helping people to feel more patriotic towards America, to do the godly things, and so on. And, that's why it's just so shocking and horrendous, that someone like him, could be assassinated. I mean, that was what it was. It was a political assassination. And, and of course, the way so many people have seen, I've seen it several times. It's like a car accident. You can't turn away from it, but it's also so horrible. There he was 1 minute, and you could tell he was feeling comfortable and he was feeling happy to be able to share his wisdom with people, not in an obnoxious way, but just, really caring about people, trying to get these messages across and so on. And he was, at the top of his game, really. And all of a sudden, a noise, and then his head went back, and it seemed like a movie. It almost seemed like this is how they make it look in the movie.
Very surreal, right? And, absolutely.
Yes. And, of course, you knew that it really was true, but just the way, of course, you didn't want to believe, or I didn't want to believe that it was true. That was part of it also. But anyhow, so this is really troublesome in a lot of different ways. I'm glad that, of course, that they caught the person who did it.
Exactly.
In relatively short time too. His father recognized his picture from the picture that the FBI and the police put out. His father recognized him, but then when he said something, to him. Trying to see, it looks like you kind of thing. And at first he didn't want to admit that it was him. And then he did, but he said, I'd rather kill myself than give myself up. Yeah. And then the father, spoke to a family friend. I mean, there are various accounts of how it got from there to his being arrested. But basically, he spoke to a family friend who was somewhat involved in the sheriff. Well, his father was in the sheriff's department. And,
yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, his father's a law enforcement retired, deputy sheriff, and you have to turn your own son in, which he's following what he would assume is common sense anyway. You have to, right?
Right.
I mean, what else could you do?
And it's so interesting. His father was a sheriff, and his mother was a social worker, or is a social worker. And, that is like the man who tried to assassinate Trump. Both his parents were social workers, and it's like, why they need to be looking into their own family, and seeing the dysfunction there.
Something's wrong out there. It's just amazing, and that's why we have you here. I just want to remind everybody, Dr. Carol, that if you have questions or comments, ladies and gentlemen, as we dig deeper into these subjects about healing, is what I'm saying at the top of the radio show here, and I'm sure you would agree, our nation and the whole planet needs healing. But if you have questions and comments, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to join us. I like to say, Doctor, that of the 4 types of conversation, debate, discourse, diatribe, and dialogue, we love dialogue with critical thinking. But ladies and gentlemen out there, no matter where you're listening to this radio station, around the nation and the world, and who knows beyond, it's 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. Our very special guest for these 2 hours, and we're privileged to have her and call her a friend of the show, is Dr. Carol Lieberman. Yes, the doctor who helps you stay sane in an insane world. And I don't want to overly dramatize it, Doctor, but it seems like the world's becoming more insane, and that's my opinion. What say you?
Yes. We were a cancel culture. I mean, we still are, but now it's become assassination nation. Assassination has become, almost accepted, like trivialized, I mean, after 2 attempts at Trump, 2 that we know of, 2 people who were caught. There were actually a lot more. And now this, I think that the reason why, so I think, first of all, and now, did you not want me to mention his name, the assassin?
Well, you're free to do that. I mean, I don't have a ban on that. I mean, I choose, my own way. I was not going to mention this person because why give any glorification for those out there that think the other side? But no, you go right ahead. I mean, obviously, you're our guest.
I'll just mention his first name just because it's easier to talk about it. If I can.
Yeah. You're our guest. Please go ahead.
Okay, so. I think that I've been thinking about what went into it, why he did it. And of course we don't really know the answer to this, but I mean, of course politics was certainly a part of it because apparently, now people said that people who knew him and people in his family said that he really wasn't very political, except more recently when it came to Charlie Kirk, when he was talking about how Charlie Kirk was going to be coming to this university in Utah. And and he started talking about all kinds of, how horrible he was, how hateful he was, and all kinds of very strong language. And which is interesting because I think part of it, besides disagreeing with his politics, I think part of it was also envy. Because Tyler has a very interesting background in that he apparently did really well in high school, and he got a scholarship to
I read that,
yes, a $32,000 scholarship to Utah State University, and he was majoring in engineering, and he only went 1 semester and then he dropped out. So, now he went to another school, and then now he's in, learning to be an electrician, which is kind of a far fall from majoring in engineering and,
Big change,
presumably
right?
going. Yes. So it makes me wonder also his age, 22. It makes me wonder, that's an age when people can have their first break in schizophrenia. And it makes me wonder whether he has, some kind of mental illness, also perhaps bipolar, not also, but that's another possibility.
Okay.
But because, I'm wondering if something interrupted his, why wasn't he able to pursue these college scholarship? What happened? Was it just that he really wasn't intelligent enough to handle engineering, or was there some mental problem that got in the way of his studying or something? But I don't know that obviously for a fact, but these are just things that possibilities, differential diagnoses. also, he apparently was very obsessed with violent video games. You know,
that's what we want to talk about, Doctor. You bet.
Every school shooter, every single school shooter that we have known about in America has been obsessed with violent video games. And I have been talking about the danger of violent video games since video games came about.
And you testified in front of the Congress. Right, you testified in front of the Congress on this. This is interesting. Right.
Absolutely. Several times, warning people how dangerous these video games are. And that, when I was doing it, I mean, they've gotten a lot worse since. And so I think that played into it as well. And then, of course, social media with extremist views. You know, he was listening to those, apparently. And then also, I was starting to say, I think he was envious of Charlie Kirk because he you know, basically flunked out of college, and Charlie goes around to all these colleges and you know, is looked up to by most people anyway. And so he's like a celebrity, you know, and so I think that there was some envy.
Well, this is a hot topic, ladies and gentlemen, as it's, of course, a very sad news story to have been reporting 24/7 here on all media around the world, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But isn't that interesting, Doctor? You would imagine, based on what you've told us and what many have read, he was along the path of being more of like a great student. He followed many of the things that you would think he would probably want to be or would be a supporter of the things that Charlie Kirk was saying. So how ironic. But from your realm of studying the mind, you're saying what? It theoretically could be, schizophrenia, bipolarism? Who knows? Who knows?
Some kind of, you know, I've never met him personally and, you know, all of that. But you know, it's really strange. I mean, if there is, whatever problems he has, whatever psychological problems he has, and it's just the part that I can't put together is how and when and where did he learn how to shoot like that? Exactly.
How do you do that? I mean, I spend time in the law enforcement world, not to be bragging here. People probably know that. And I have a lot of training in the firearm world with rifles and such. But I know so much we won't go down that path. But you're right. Where did this man acquire the skill set to shoot from that distance? Some say, 200 yards from a perch, you know, right. An easy line of sight direction. And if you look at the rifle or the firearm that's involved here, it looks like I call this a reboard Mauser 98, which came in an 8mm version to a 30-06, blah, blah, blah. The point is, you're right. Where did he get these skills? And if he wasn't shooting, you know, obviously for the head, the shot from a 30-06 is obviously very powerful. Going back in history, Doctor, knowing this from my side of the equation, James Earl Ray used a pump-action 30-06 rifle when he sadly killed, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King. The same caliber, but a whole different situation. So who knows?
I mean, it kind of makes you wonder, could he be involved with other people? Could there be other people involved? Could people who trained him?
Exactly.
You know?
Hand signals, all things you see, all these quirky things that are going there. But, Doctor, before we go to the hard break at the bottom of the hour in a few minutes, I wanted to explore who you are to the audience here so people have a good look. See, you know, if I'm reading this correctly, one of your first books that you read on Freud was Into Dreams. You're obviously looking at becoming what? Going to medical school. This is not something very easy to do, and you did accomplish this. But one of your heroes, I guess, was what? The first American doctor in America, Elizabeth Blackwell. Am I correct in that assumption that you wanted to kind of salute her path and your own career path? Tell us more.
Well, when I was about 8 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a doctor. And, yes, the big reason for that was that I read a book about her and how she was a doctor at a clinic. She was the first woman doctor. And she had a clinic and you know, it just struck me. And then when I was a teenager, I read Freud's interpretation of dreams, and that totally connected with me. And so I knew that I wanted to be a psychiatrist before I applied to medical school.
And is it true that you also studied under Anna Freud? And that's fascinating, too. I mean, she passed away in, 1982, from what I'm reading, and her emphasis was the importance of ego in the conversation that we're having. But you actually studied under her, or is this the school that you attended?
Yes. No, I did when it was in my last year of psychiatry residency, which I did at Bellevue, and I managed to get leave for some period of time to go to London and study under her. It's interesting, really, because both in terms of Elizabeth Blackwell, when I did my after medical school, I did some sub-internships, and then I did an internship in medicine at the New York Infirmary. And when I walked in to start my residence, it was an internship, to start that, in the lobby of the New York Infirmary was a statue of Elizabeth Blackwell.
How about that? Wow.
It was like, do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
There you go. There's some connection there, right?
Yes. Now, Anna Freud wasn't just the universe. That was me. I wanted to, I specifically engineered that to be able to have some time in her clinic. Yes, that was like amazing.
Well, you're also an expert witness. I mean, we can get into this and go off in different tangents, but the Jenny Jones television case, I mean, you're obviously, a very well-seasoned person in the courtroom as an expert witness. That can be another conversation down the road. But it's interesting when we're describing Dr. Carol Lieberman, MD, the doctor who helps you stay sane in an insane world. I mean, everybody out there this week, the pain of 9/11, I'm just like you, doctor. I'm a native New Yorker, was born in Jamaica, Queens. I live here in Arizona. You're out on the West Coast. But our roots are deep, and no matter where you are, ladies and gentlemen, God, that feeling of horrible, hollow feeling of what happened on 9/11, and what I want to get into maybe in the next half hour in depth from your side is how do people handle, God bless anybody that knows what this is like. How do you deal with the loss of someone, the death in such great numbers? It's so horrific. So we never should forget that day. And God bless those people. So how do you handle that? What do you do if you're a spouse of somebody who's passed on, and the pain? I have no idea how. That's why we have people like you to talk to us about it.
Well, excuse me. As far as Charlie Kirk, yes. I saw some of his wife's. She gave a speech tonight, and sure but you probably saw it too.
I saw some of it, to be honest. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I saw some of it too. And, very, very, it's, so brave of her. Here he just died, and she's able to come out and really, what she said that was very strong, and I certainly hope that she does carry this through. It's not going to, that the person who killed her husband thinks that he was destroying his his movement. Sure. But no, that in fact it's just going to make it stronger, and that she's going to be very involved to keep it going.
It's powerful. It is. I have no idea how if I lost a significant person in my life like that, and wow, just hours later, getting dressed, standing in front of a camera, talking to the whole world, that takes an incredible amount of strength. And, God bless her and her family and all the people that we're talking and focusing on this 2-hour episode of the Dr. Sky Experience. And if many people are wondering, Doctor, normally we talk science, technology, and things of that nature, but absolutely, with no apology, a story like this to dedicate to those that lost loved ones and those that, of course, now this week experience the pain of losing a conservative activist like that in as we describe it, a cruel and despicable act. And now we find out the alleged shooter. All of this just off the charts. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions and concerns, maybe you're just a little bit shy of talking about your personal experiences. We do respect that. But if you do have concerns with the good doctor, she's the doctor who helps you stay sane in an insane world, and I'm sure she'll do everything she possibly can to provide some comfort in these very difficult times. The number, 1-800-848-9222. As always, 1-800-848-9222. So, Doctor, when we come back, we can at least tease it for the moment here. The concerns of social media out there. I'm not a person who wants to see censorship, and I don't think many people out there would want that. Maybe some do. But the impact that social media has had, some of it's pretty good. But what say you in a nutshell in about a minute before we go to break?
Well, some of it is good, but it really can be dangerous in so many different ways. One example is, how it makes us jealous of everybody because everybody presents themselves as if they're having this wonderful, glamorous life. So it makes everyone else feel like, what's wrong with me? And, of course, even worse, on the other end of the spectrum, is all the hate that is, that comes out in social media.
It's a brewing ground for the problems that we hear today. Not in my opinion. I'm not the expert you are in that particular realm. But it's so amazing. On a lighter note, imagine, let's say you have a Facebook account or Instagram and you have 4,000 or 5,000 friends. You wonder simply how many of those would give $1 to you or to me. And I'm not asking them. If there was a need like that, I mean, you'd see how quickly some of the people would run like the devil. So it's all what? It's all an illusion in many ways. And I think the part of the problem we'll talk about. Doctor, thank you. As we move to our hard break at the bottom of the hour here, you're listening to me, Steve Cates. This is the Dr. Sky Experience. We're privileged and honored to have Dr. Carol Lieberman, MD, the doctor who helps you stay sane in an insane world. And her website, very simply, is, of course, www.drcarol, Dr. Carol with an E.com. Doctor, we'll be right back, and thanking you ahead of time for joining us on our 2-hour journey toward healing. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Love one another and help others to rise to the highest level. Simply by pouring out love. Love is infectious and the greatest of healing energies. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, a quote from Unknown. 33 minutes after the hour, our special guest, as we call all of our guests special, but very much in this particular mode, as the Dr. Sky Experience does a solemn tribute to those that lost their lives on 9/11 and the pain of those that survived the loss. How do you deal with that, ladies and gentlemen? And the sad day, Wednesday of this week, with the assassination of a very interesting conservative activist, as we all know and will remember, as we talk about Charlie Kirk. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue. Dr. Lieberman, the phone lines are lighting up here, as we would expect. So let's say good morning to Frank in the state of Maine. Frank, you're on with Dr. Lieberman. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Dr. Sky. Under the circumstances, I'm doing fantastic.
Well, God bless.
And thank you very much, Dr. Sky and Dr. Lieberman. I have a question, a comment and a question.
Go right ahead.
For thousands of years, we've been a warring society. I mean, the Huns, the Genghis Khan, the Persians, the Ottomans, the Romans, the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, we've been a warring people. And, the Songhai, Ghana, and Mali empires in Africa. We've been a warring world. But my question is, what does the doctor, and doctor, this is directed towards you, what do you think is the difference now? I mean, is it the more sophistication of the weapons, or is it the radicalization of what people are saying that's more instantaneous? Or do you think it's something like a Manchurian candidate, like somebody who is manipulating minds? It's an interesting dynamic here.
Dr. Lieberman, this is very interesting. Think? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, that's an interesting question. It's like through the ages, violence and war has changed, but it's still violence and it's still killing people. I think, yes, of course, social media and yes, the weapons have changed and all that. But, Freud, talking about Freud discovered, 100 years ago, that we are born with two innate drives, violence and sex. And if we are raised in a healthy environment, notably a healthy family, then the sex drive becomes associated with love. And the violence drive becomes socialized into ambition. So I think the explanation would be that we're not really living in such we're not being raised, people aren't being raised in such healthy environments. In fact, schools are really making the whole situation worse. so many schools. When I was going to school, I was born in the Bronx. I was raised in Flushing and Forest Hills, and then I lived in Manhattan when I went to when I was training at New York Infirmary in Bellevue.
Wow, what a small world, Doctor. We might be related because my parents met in Forest Hills and Forest Park. So let's continue on here. Wow, all the close connection here. Amazing.
So I'm just making the point that and my heart, even though by 9/11 I had moved to California, my heart was and still is in New York. So anyway, so when I was going to school, PS 214, we used to pledge the flag, do the Pledge of Allegiance, sing patriotic songs, and that's how we started the day all the time, and not just in elementary school, but like in junior high school also.
It was different.
Today, most schools have given that up, and that is number one mistake, because that was something that, first of all, ingrained patriotism in every child, and second of all, made everyone in the class feel like they were in it together, like that it brought cohesion.
How right you are, Doctor. Amen. No, you bring it up. And I want to thank Frank in Maine for being part of the Dr. Sky experience. Doctor, as you're continuing to be very popular, as I would imagine always in all these different interviews, let's say good morning to Charlie in Cherry Hill. Charlie, good morning. You're on with Dr. Lieberman. How are you doing?
Good morning. And I have a question I want to ask Dr. Lieberman. It's just a basic, straight-up question. And that is, like, with respect to Charlie Kirk's assassin, how could somebody do something like that? And the reason why I ask you a question in this context is I disagree with the guy politically on a lot of his issues. Okay. I never met the guy, but if I did meet him, I would shake his hand and I'd wish him the best of luck, and I'd say, look, you're trying to help out young people, college-age young people. That's certainly a noble and worthy goal. I'd say keep up the good work, and even though I don't agree with the guy on a lot of stuff, I would never think about shooting him or harming him or stabbing him or something like that. And I want to know from the doctor what causes a person's mind or brain or thought process to get so messed up.
Well, stay with us, Charlie. You bring up some good points here. Doctor, this is fascinating because these are things that I don't have answers, and 99% of the people like Charlie, we're searching for some healing or understanding. Please continue, Doctor.
Well, I was mentioning some of the things earlier. It's a combination. I hope we're going to find out more as time goes by about what really was the main part of his motive. But I think clearly there was a dysfunctional home. Perhaps his father being a sheriff was, perhaps this was some rebellion against his father being a sheriff. I don't know about his mother's a social worker, but, sometimes kids get jealous of the mother spending time helping other kids and not them. He may have some kind of mental illness, as I was talking about before. He dropped out of college, and he was on this $32,000 scholarship. Something went wrong there. It could be like the first signs of a mental illness. But I think, and social media, of course, but I think that the main problem, or certainly a significant problem, is his diving into the world of violent video games.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I used to talk about how violent media, television shows and movies were bad, and they are. But when video games came along, that is so much. They are so much worse. So much. Because you're actually pushing buttons and doing things to kill people. You're practicing killing people. If anything, that might be where at least helped him learn how to become a sharpshooter by playing a gazillion
Who knows?
Video games.
We'll have to find out soon as the FBI and the local law enforcement investigate and interrogate. But Charlie, if you're still with us, these are good questions. Are we getting somewhere with an answer? You have a last word on this, so go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Scott, I have one other question I want to ask the
please. Go ahead.
While we have her here. Yes. This hasn't been reported, at least tonight, but obviously has been reported in the media a great deal. The guy who stabbed and killed the poor Ukrainian woman on the train in Charlottesville, here he comes to escape a war zone in Ukraine. Who would have imagined that she would have been safer in Ukraine?
Yes.
And I have certain strong thoughts about that, but what do you think that killer's motivations were? And do you think the criminal justice system failed her? I mean, the guy had 14 prior arrests, and he was
Absolutely.
I mean, that's incomprehensible.
No, you're 100% right, Charlie, and God bless Irina Zaruska in the sad way that she had to die. That's so horrible. But, Doctor, we have a few more minutes before the next break, and Charlie, stay with us. Now, this is fascinating. We're trying to find solutions in a short 2-hour program to all the problems of pain and suffering in the world here. But, Doctor, you got the floor.
Well, yes, first of all, that was such a shocking death, shocking crime. And, our justice system absolutely needs to be reformed. It is absurd that people get to be released, with no bail, no cash bail, and all of these just get released for these horrible crimes. And then, have time and time again, they keep offending, they keep committing crimes, and they keep being released. Now, he apparently was kept in jail for a while, and his family tried to tell, I don't know who, people in the court or the jail, that he shouldn't be released because they thought that he was still violent, but he got released. And lo and behold, he acted on it. I mean, he definitely was presenting signs of schizophrenia. He talked about he was hearing voices. He thought that she was reading his mind. That's a typical symptom of schizophrenia.
Right, and again, Doctor, I'm at my own convenience and my, personal opinion. I'm not going to repeat the name which is blaring in front of me here, which I could, but I won't. Never to give honor to these kind of people. Charlie, I hope we've been answering some of these concerns to you. How are we doing? I mean, are we doing a good job? Tell me.
You're doing great. You're batting 1,000, both you and the good psychiatrist. Thank you both.
And I have to get it right, Doctor. It's psychiatrist, not psychologist, correct? There you go.
Yes, right.
Making sure that works right. If you're still on the line, ladies and gentlemen, or want to get in on this conversation, a rare opportunity, as we mark this solemn moment in American history, 24 years ago, this most tragic day, we're going to get into a conversation, if not in this hour, in the second hour, what the good doctor has to say about the story of terrorism. This is something that everybody needs to pay attention to. And again, if you'd like to get in on the conversation, it's 1-800-848-9222. You can send me an email at any time. And actually, Doctor, we actually get some guests, from the people who send emails, the listeners. The email for me is just drsky@wabcradio.com. And your website is just Dr. Carol, that's Carol with an E.com. That's fascinating. Doctor, we'll be right back. So if there's Paulie in Westwood and other people on the line, we'll do our very best to make sure that you folks get heard here on the Dr. Sky Experience. Where? On Talk Radio 77 WABC. A sad week, ladies and gentlemen, trying to bring some hope and salvation to some of the concerns to upbeat our lives in ways that we may not have in this week's news. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Music has healing power. It has the ability to take people out of themselves for a few hours. A quote from the great Elton John. 47 minutes after the hour, we thank actress Ruta Lee, a regular guest that we have here from the good old days of Hollywood, as she continues to talk about positivity, and equally to talk about positivity, our special guest for the 2 hours, Dr. Carol Lieberman. She's with us, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about maybe ways, ladies and gentlemen, she can help to talk about and how to resolve some of our concerns about the tragedies that have happened 24 years ago in the nation, and also just this week with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let's continue, Doctor, with our callers to the top of the hour. We say good morning to Paulie in Westwood. Paulie, how you doing? We're on with Dr. Lieberman.
Doing good, Dr. Sky. Love talking to you.
Thank you.
I got a question for you. When I was growing up, in our family, we had Sunday dinners, everything like that. And growing up was like, it was nice. But when somebody died, they'd be like, there's a star, it's going to be a bright star in the sky tonight. Mm-hmm. That's who died. Now, what's the newest star that you could think of that I could actually buy, dedicate to Charlie?
Well, let me say this. I mean, this goes a little off subject, but God bless you have some good questions and concerns. In the astronomical world, in the morning sky, just before sunrise, if you look to the southeast, the most brilliant star other than the sun is the star Sirius. And to the Egyptians, it was a god itself. So maybe that's interesting right here, Doctor, we're hearing about.
How do you find out which the newest star that's the newest star? How do you find
that would be
out?
a tough thing to answer because so many stars explode that it's so hard to categorize that. But if you're looking at something to dedicate to Charlie Kirk, I would say look up Sirius, Sirius, as the most brilliant star. You can see it just before sunrise in the southeast. And what a tribute that would be, don't you think, Doctor? I mean, that would be an amazing way to be positive.
Yes, absolutely.
Paulie, any other questions about this? I mean, all the tragedies. Look at all the people at our home base there, Talk Radio 77 WABC. The pain that whole area experienced. I mean, I wasn't there that day. I was watching it on television. So many people that I know and friends of those friends perished in those things. So, Paulie, I mean, I don't know how people handle the loss like that. And never forget is what I'm trying to say. And the good doctor's talking to us about, how do we heal? I mean, any thoughts you have, Paulie, on this before we move forward? What say you?
9/11 survivor, and I just got my settlement, and I want to take whatever money I got and just buy a star and dedicate it to Charlie.
Well, there you go, my friend. Take a look at Sirius.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. They have a company that calls Name a Star out there, but I don't want to get too much like I'm doing a big promo for it. That's something out of my purview. But, Paulie, any last comment or question? Because we're going to move forward. We got a lot of people that want to talk to the good doctor, and all with great concerns.
No, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Paulie.
You're
Hope you'll continue to be part of the Dr. Sky experience. Dr. Lieberman, this is fascinating. You mentioned before video games. Let's talk a little bit about you have a passion for this. This is not just something you picked up and decided to say, too many kids are watching video games. You've testified in Congress on this whole subject and about television violence. I mean, talk about that. That's powerful.
Well, yes, just like marijuana is stronger today than it used to be. Same thing with violent video games. They are much more powerful, much more realistic, much more violent. And it really is, there have been studies over the years that show that the more hours of violent media you consume, the more aggressive you become. And not everybody is going to go out and become a serial killer, but there's more domestic violence, there's airplane rage, road rage, parking space rage, all kinds of things. And it's an addiction. It really is an addiction. People and kids. I mean, parents. How parents used to use the television set as a babysitter. Now parents use video games as a babysitter, and so kids come home.
That's a shame.
And the first thing they do is they sit down and play these violent video games, and then we wonder why our society is becoming more violent.
No, you're 100% right. But let me go off on another tangent that I'm totally not qualified to talk about, but have opinions on. Maybe people out there do at 1-800-848-9222. The very diets that we have, I mean, I'm talking to friends that I know that have children, and they're telling me their 10 or 11-year-old is pre-diabetic. And I'm saying, well, bless them. God bless. So, again, not to attack companies. I know the good, Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to do something about taking these things out of food. But what's your opinion? Could that also be a causation to this whole thing in addition to what you're talking about, video games and social media? Talk about that a moment. I mean, let's say
there's no question that we are not eating healthy food. I mean, unless you're living on a farm and eating it direct.
Yeah, I'd like to be on a farm, right.
Yes. The food that most people are eating is so processed and so fake. In a lot of cases, it's phony food. And of course it's doing bad things to us. And I do applaud RFK Jr. for trying to fix that. Especially things like, with the social, what was the social service money, the EBT cards and things like that.
Exactly.
Food stamps, basically.
There was terrible things on there that's not good for your health. Right. Horrible.
Right. And so not only are we paying for that, we're paying for candy and soda and all that, which is what's giving kids diabetes. Mm-hmm. So not only are we paying for that at the beginning, but also when they get diabetes, then we have to pay for their treatment the rest of their life.
No,
so I think that was, some people think that was horrible. How could you do that? Take away candy from but people need to make better choices. But it's also the food manufacturers. It's not just the people. They need to take things out of the food that is not healthy. And yes, I'm sure there are things that contribute to the violence.
No, it's amazing. I don't have children myself, so I'm really not qualified to speak on any of that. That's why I like to listen. And I think the art of good talk radio, let the people out there who are listening judge that. But the point is, it's such a very interesting subject to talk about. All these interconnections that move in, like different points on a map, they all point to one thing. And you talk about how individuals, can go through the process of healing through visitation in your own offices, let's say, or even by consultation. So not to sound funny, it's a scenario like I'm thinking of, like in The Sopranos, like Tony Soprano is lying there on the couch and Dr. Malfi is in so many words, your role, like Dr. Malfi is to Tony Soprano, in these continuing sessions to try to find out what the causation is and what the solution is to these issues that we have that maybe some of us can't even admit that we have, right? I mean, that's your role to be the seeker.
That's another problem. That's another part of the puzzle for why people are crazier these days. I mean, one big part is the fact that the state mental hospitals closed and put people out onto the sidewalk and expected or hoped that they would somehow make their way to a clinic to get medication and get therapy and so on. And that never really happened because, first of all, they didn't build enough clinics. And second of all, because a lot of these people just couldn't find their way to a clinic once their medication ran out and they became psychotic, or if they were a drug addict or an alcoholic, it's not a model that would work for people with those kinds of problems, people who needed to be hospitalized for long-term, to get long-term treatment. It wasn't Cuckoo's Nest. These were really places where people got help. And so that's a big part of it. But then also the fact that psychiatrists have become pill pushers because insurance companies don't pay enough for them to do talk therapy, which is really what cures people, really what helps people, not the medication. No pill cures anybody in terms of psychiatry. No psychiatric medication cures any mental health problem.
Well, it's like a Band-Aid on a wound that needs other methodologies of healing. Right, you're right. It's
exactly.
Is it a mask? It's like a mask to temporarily alleviate the problem, or the solution's not there.
It's to help some of the symptoms so that then they can participate better in talk therapy. And nowadays, because psychiatrists are just giving out prescriptions. They see somebody for 15 minutes or half an hour, and they ask them about their symptoms, and they give them a prescription and tell them to come back in a month or 2 or 6. And that is not going to help no matter whether you're depressed or anxious or have obsessive-compulsive personalities, whatever your mental illness or psychological problem is, that is not going to help it.
Well, a pharmacy friend who retired, without naming him, of course, here in Arizona, he described it, and he looked at me and he said, we're in the era of pharmacological pornography. And I said, wow, that's a powerful statement. But I think most people do get it. Doctor, you're awesome, and I do appreciate you as we go and conclude hour 1. But in hour number 2, I'm asking kindly if you would help us in the subject matter here, because where these horrific events happened on 9/11, mostly in the East Coast of the United States, many people out there are still suffering, and I'm certainly not, asking them to call us per se with their particular situations, because that's maybe too hurtful. But in the broad base of radio, what I'd like to talk about is your view on this whole story of terrorism and what we need to know here in the United States of America and be real about it. And I read a lot about what you're talking about here, and we'll get into that conversation. Thank you, Doctor, for hour 1. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2, just around the corner. The Dr. Sky Experience continues. And a look-see to tomorrow as we move into time and space. We go back to some of our more traditional themes. 2 hours with a very special gentleman, Darcy Weir. He's a producer, director, and a writer. Does so much in the paranormal area and has so much to say as he attended the recent UFO hearings once again in Congress, talking about what we may hopefully someday find out, the real answer, hopefully, of what UAPs, UFOs, and this gentleman in Canada has well over 20 or 25 serious documentaries. So tomorrow evening, as we move into Saturday, Sunday morning, here on the Dr. Sky Experience, Darcy Weir, producer, director, and writer. Continuing proudly with Dr. Carol Lieberman. You ladies and gentlemen can go to her site. It's Dr. Carol, that's Carol with an E.com. We'll be right back. Join us for hour number 2 on the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
At 5 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, proud to be back here with hour number 2 of the Dr. Sky Experience here on your favorite radio station here and around the nation and the world, Talk Radio 77 WABC. As we continue to move through time and space, if you have an email you'd like to send me, it's simply drsky@wabcradio.com. And to listen to the many previous editions of the Dr. Sky Experience, along with so many of the other great hosts here on Talk Radio 77 WABC, simply go to these options, wabcradio.com or redappleaudionetworks.com. To get into the conversation, it's 1-800-848-9222. And ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank our helmsmen, both Bill and Tony, navigating this signal, as you would expect, across the nation, around the world, and who knows, maybe out even into the cosmos. Continuing in hour number 2 with our special guest, Dr. Carol Lieberman, M.D. She's a forensic psychiatrist, an expert witness, and a legal consultant. Lots of other things to talk about with her. And some of the prior cases that she's been involved with in that particular area as an expert witness, the Terri Schiavo appeal, Nevada versus Floyd Mayweather, a domestic violence situation, celebrity divorces, as listed here, Roseanne Barr, Jim Carrey, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and school shootings, victims, families versus the media. Doctor, thank you. Your resume would be like the white pages of the New York phone book years ago, but thanks for joining us. We do appreciate you. And in all due respect to you and the callers, let's continue because we have so many people, but I do want to zoom in right after this batch of good folks calling in. I wanted to get into the subject that's near and dear to everybody, at least it should be, the story of terrorism. Let's welcome Bob in Yonkers. Bob, good morning. How are you? You're on with Dr. Lieberman.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Dr. Sky.
Hey,
you have one of the best shows on radio after midnight.
Oh, thank you.
ABC executives should fire the people because it's a waste of time. They're terrible.
No. Right, Doctor. We want to find calming solutions, but no, you. And by the way, I appreciate your comment.
I'm telling you, I look forward to your program every week. Very important information you're giving the public. Very important.
Well, thank you. We try, but hey, if it wasn't like guests like Dr. Lieberman, so Dr. Lieberman, you heard the nice kudos that they're giving me. So
yes, thank you. Thank you.
There you go. Well, go ahead, Bob. You got some concerns, or is that what you wanted to say? Any questions or comments?
In terms of security, I tell you, in my opinion, because I'm a retired police officer, I believe they failed in security for Charlie. They absolutely failed. They didn't cover the high ground. They didn't cover the high structures. That's intolerable. Terrible.
Yes. Well, you're right, Bob. You look around there. I mean, you know, I've been to many events where I was doing some things in law enforcement. That's an old story. But you're right. It looked like that was an open invitation for what happened. Doctor, please continue what Bob's saying. It's a pretty obvious sight. There's really not a lot of security.
Absolutely. And you would think after what happened, you know, the 2 attempts against Trump's life, you know, and particularly the one in Butler. I mean, that's so similar to this one. You would think they would be more careful about people on top of buildings, you know, and the cameras, you know, the video that we've been seeing where he was on top of the building. And I mean, you could see, I mean, maybe it wasn't easy if you were where Charlie Kirk was, but they should have been able to have that covered. You know, what of course it's beyond horrendous that he was assassinated, but do you know what's even worse than Charlie Kirk being assassinated? What's worse is all the people celebrating.
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah, that's horrible.
And I think all the people who were celebrating, particularly the teachers, you know, were wondering how kids are going to be grow up and be violent. the teachers who are literally celebrating in all different grades. I mean, I've been hearing this from all different kinds of people who have kids and know of this, and that's such bad role models. They should be fired, not just bad role models. And similarly, in Congress, when it was asked to have a moment of silence, and the people, of course, the Democrats, people who also didn't like what Charlie Kirk was saying, they didn't want to give a minute of prayer or a minute of silence for him because he died. I mean, that's horrible. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever you are. I mean, he deserved a minute of their time, a minute of silence after he was killed. So these are things that kids are watching. These things, they're seeing these people model for them, and I think people should be fired who celebrated. And
absolutely, it's horrible. There was a guy standing up without a shirt on. I mean, you're free to not have a shirt on, but he was cheering that. I mean, that's documented in video, and he's yelling something out. But Bob, if you're still with us, your law enforcement experience, how would you have buttoned that place up? What would you tell the audience here on this radio show?
Well, first of all,
what would you have done?
If they were short on funds, they should have been using drones also.
Or maybe they should have had the event indoors, don't you think? That would have been a little bit smarter, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Bob, you're awesome. Thank you for your nice comments. But you get the last word. You got anything else you want to add here? It's an open forum here.
Well, I think the reason why they don't want to talk about the failure of security is because they don't want to be embarrassed. That's why we got a very big lawsuits coming out of this, too.
Oh, yeah. We're not heard the end of this by any means. Bob, thank you. Appreciate you, and hope you'll continue to be, as you say, you enjoy the show. Hope you'll continue with the Dr. Sky experience on the weekends. Dr. Lieberman, let's continue here with Mark in New York. Mark, good morning. You're on with Dr. Lieberman. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm enjoying the conversation. We spoke about my programming of the Voyagers once before.
Yes, I remember that.
From NASA.
Yes,
I'd like to contribute a philosophical, poetic analogy toward the healing of our really troubled, sick nation.
Go ahead. We need it.
You love aviation, and I do too. And the Founding Fathers chose as the national symbol for the United States not the mountain lion, not the bear, not the wolf, but they chose the eagle, a bird. For a very particular reason. The bird depends on flight for its life, and its soaring life depends on having two wings working cooperatively. And the poetic metaphor of a wing on a bird compared to the wings of politics, right or left of center.
Yes.
If one wing is always attacking the other wing, all that happens is that the bird becomes paralyzed in the sky, falls out of the air, and dies.
Correct.
The only way that the nation can survive at this troubled point is if the people suddenly realize that both sides need each other for the balanced flight of the nation and life itself.
Boy, that sounds great, and you described it in the most aeronautical way. What do you think, Doctor? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yes, very poetic and very true.
Well, Mark, any other thing you want to add to the conversation? Because we have so many people out there that I think want to share in with what you're doing. Mm-hmm.
I agree with the doctor, the psychiatrist, Dr. Lieberman, about the startling similarity of Butler with somebody firing from a roof outside, which was sloped, to what happened with Charlie Kirk. And it is astonishing that we hear all the time about drones that can surveil. Why weren't they used? They're cheap. They're easily done from on the ground with remote controls. I think there's such a pattern of sloppiness that the sloppiness can't be without purpose. They're deliberate.
You bring up some good points, though. But Mark, thank you really so much for your contributions and putting that, analogy together about the wings. You're right. If you don't have balance, you're going to go crashing down. So each side, left and right wing, needs stability to stay airborne. Thank you, Mark. We'll continue here with the next group of callers. Let's say good morning to Joe in New Jersey. You're on with Dr. Lieberman. How are you this morning on your weekend? How are you doing?
Dr. Sky, Dr. Lieberman, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Dr. Sky, you know I call once in a while. I'm your Navy veteran.
Yes,
and
sir.
I was born in the 60s, raised in the 70s, and served my country in the 80s. And I don't know what's going on today. I knew right from wrong. I served in the Cold War. We knew what was right, what was wrong. Today is just a state of confusion.
That's exactly right.
It's amazing. It's amazing what's going on. If my mother and father, my dear, beautiful mother and father were alive, I don't think they would understand what was going on today.
Yeah, there's something disconnected. Doctor, please give us some inspiration on this. I mean, that's why we have you here and appreciate you.
Well, that's true. You know, if you just look at the news every morning, I mean, the kinds of things that appear in the news, it seems like it's a horror. It's what's the word? It's like not a horror movie, but like some super like the Twilight Zone. You know, you would never expect these things to be really happening. And yes, our parents would think, what? You know, and each day there's something crazier and more outrageous, more typically, you know, not in a good way than the day before. And I think, you know, first of all, to go back to, I would love to talk more about 9/11 and about terrorism.
Oh, we're going to believe me, I guarantee it. Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because to go back to that, you know, that was something that really has destabilized our country. We recovered, of course, in a lot of ways, but we really aren't the same as we were before 9/11. And the threat of terrorism is greater now than ever before. And Charlie Kirk, you know, his assassination is another example of why we're in more danger now, because divided we fall. And our nation is so incredibly divided politically. All of a sudden, you know, I mean, why can't people be friends even if they have different politics? And why can't a husband and a wife still stay married even if they have different politics? I mean, there are so many marriages breaking up, so many work situations breaking up, families, all kinds of things. It's become all of a sudden so much more important than other things in life, and that shouldn't be the way it is.
You say it so well, Doctor. Joe, you get the last word if you're still with us. Your comment finally as we move on.
I'm here, Dr. Sky and Dr. Lieberman. And one more thing. I live in the New York area, North Jersey, New York area, and I think that the pandemic gave people a pass. The way they act, like it's okay to do bad things. It's not right. Yes. We all know right from wrong.
Joe, we love you, man. This is great.
The pandemic did have a very, very profound effect as well, because one of the ways is because it caused people to feel as though they weren't going to live as long as they thought they would. With all this death around us and all this warning about, you know, you have to take the vaccine or else you're going to die and all this stuff, it really made people feel like they wanted immediate gratification. You know, I might as well do these things now because who knows what's going to happen. And people are just going for immediate gratification.
Yes. Joe in New Jersey, thanks for being part of the Dr. Sky Experience. Always insightful commentary here. And as I mentioned before, Doctor, to the audience out there, not that you can't debate, you can't, you know, we don't want diatribe, but those 4 types of conversation, we really like what? Dialogue with critical thinking. It isn't that lacking in the world, don't you think, Doctor? The critical thinking. Yes. Where's that gone? Right.
Yes. Logic has gone out the window. It's just emotion and explosion.
Well, 1-800-848-9222, ladies and gentlemen, these subjects are near and dear to us, but as we have you here for this, you know, radio show, and again, thank you for doing this, I want to talk about the whole subject of terrorism. I mean, near and dear to the people on the East Coast and other parts of the country. The horrific events, so sad. I mean, I was here in Arizona, ready to go and move over and drive to San Diego that morning, and I just couldn't believe it. But knowing a little bit about aircraft, when the first aircraft hit the North Tower, the TV was saying, well, it may have been a small little type Cessna plane, and I go, wow, the cut in the building, it couldn't have been that. So we all know what happened. But talk about this. I mean, the impact from a psychiatrist's viewpoint of what's going on with people still. I mean, how do they seek help? Well, what's your advice on this? How does one deal with the death and loss of people that are near and dear, husbands, wives, I mean, I couldn't even imagine. Give us some inspiration. How do you deal with stuff like this? What do you do?
Well, it's one thing to be dealing with the loss of a husband like Charlie Kirk's wife is dealing. She's being so brave and so on, although obviously she's hurting a lot inside. She's just putting on this brave front. And it's one thing to sort of deal with the death of, a family or friend or someone who's really close to you. And it's another thing to be dealing with, to have lost a family or friend, someone who's close to you in 9/11. Mm-hmm. One isn't worse or better than the other, but actually, while we're talking about that, I was very disturbed this 9/11 with how the memorial, the morning memorial when people come to Ground Zero and say the names of their loved ones and all that.
Yes.
And on television, they showed people behind the people who were reading the names. There were people just walking in the street, as if it was some normal day, and it was so disrespectful, right. And it was so, it was like a hitting you in the head with the fact that people have forgotten. We're supposed to always remember, never forget, and yet here the people are walking back and forth. And why they show that on television, if that was happening, well, first of all, they should have closed that street off. But if it was happening, they shouldn't have had that on television. It was it just really diminished 9/11 and the tragedy and so on, to think, well, these people don't care. They're just going about their business. So that was very bothersome. But, it's... 9/11 changed my life. On that day, that's when I decided that, first of all, that terrorism was going to be something that was going to be the worst threat to our life in our lifetime. People who were living on that day said, this was going to be the worst threat, and it has turned out to be that way. Now, in order to sort of deal with the impact of 9/11 and the impact of other terror attacks and so on, you have to recognize that we are in more trouble today. We are more vulnerable today to terrorists than we ever were. And there have been past presidencies, Obama and Biden, they wanted us to forget about 9/11. They wanted us to forget about the terrorist threat. But it has grown. It has taken over Europe. And the terrorists, it wasn't just one morning, 9/11, 2001, and where they woke up and they thought, well, we're going to attack America and fly some planes. And terrorists have been planning to take over the West for over 1,000 years. And so this 9/11 was just the first shot.
Yes, you're right, Doctor. It's amazing how the terrorists themselves, these 19 hijackers, could even get to do these training exercises in the New York area and other places in Florida without the connected dots to go out. There was some people in the FBI. I guess this is ancient history. I don't have all the facts in front of me. You probably know more about it. But we're exactly with our pants down on this whole thing. And look at those days. You could go and fly. You could just walk in, and they didn't have the intensive security because that was the causation afterwards from the 9/11 terrorist attacks. But it's amazing how we didn't spot this and didn't know. And I think other people did know, but that's a story, for another time, don't you think?
Yeah, yes. Well, but what we need to think about now is we need to think about things that we can prevent. For one thing, people need to pay attention to what's going on in Europe, because that is what is going to be us unless we take some major steps to prevent it. And what's going on in Europe is radical Islamist migrants have come in, starting with Germany in 2015, and then now France and the UK, London, Ireland, Belgium. All these countries are being overrun by terrorists who don't want to assimilate. They want to take over the country. They don't want to, enjoy the culture of whatever country it is or learn the language. They just want to get the money from the social services of those countries. And they're draining these countries dry because to pay for their room and board and everything else. And that is their plan. It's not like an accident. This is their plan. And the same plan in America. when 9/11 happened, I started to say I was already in California, but my daughter was going to school at Barnard in New York, in Manhattan, and so she was telling me what was going on, and of course I was watching television, all of that, but I had this sense that this was going to be the worst thing. So I asked myself what I could do to help people with this major problem. And, you know, I'm a psychiatrist, I'm an author, I'm a television commentator and radio commentator and so on.
Sure.
And I decided that I would devote a significant part of my work to helping people cope with terrorism. And that's what I've been doing since 9/11. And
no, that's amazing. I mean, that's awesome to hear these words because, you know, the folks who listen to this show, the Dr. Sky Experience, probably say, wait a minute, are you supposed to be talking about space and the science and astronomy? Of course. But we have the thing called American exceptionalism, whereas I'll never apologize for. And as people may know who are regular listeners to Talk Radio 77 WABC, you will hear these words, and they mean a lot. Truth, justice, and the American way. Amen. So, you know, but I think what we need to do later as we move through the show, talk about what really people can do, because you can't expect, look, we salute law enforcement. I did my part and my thing, and everybody else who's done that thing, like we had callers before, like Mark in New York telling us about his background and others. But the thing is, you know, I live here in Arizona, and we have a whole different mindset, and it's changing too, where this state was generally, in so many ways, a pro-firearm state. And God help, you know, the people in New York and the metro area, they may not like hearing this, but the truth is, it's almost impossible, even if you go through training, to be able to secure the human right of self-defense in what we consider to be up to and including the ownership of firearms to protect yourself with proper training. And I don't advocate that people just go get one just because they're angry. Hardly, right, Doctor? You don't want somebody who's unstable. You could diagnose them in I'm sure, a half a minute. That they shouldn't have that if they have mental illness, and that's the problem too. When we talk about school shootings, how do these kids get guns? Why and how do they get them? But let's not ban them for the overall good that the country has in the Second Amendment, correct?
Right. I'm not really for banning guns, and it is sad that, you know, as the country is getting more towards civil war, you know, more and more people are getting guns because they're feeling more unsafe.
Well, it may not be the answer to everything, but I know here in Arizona, look, I travel. I'm not going to reveal all the secrets. I'm trained. I have what I need to do this, and I practice, and I keep it. I don't want to use it if I don't have to for any reason other than self-defense. But the problem is, if you take away the ability for individuals to protect themselves, and you let that and entrust that to other people who are rights denied, how do people know what rights they lost if they never knew what rights they had? I think you would agree wholeheartedly, correct, Doctor?
Sure, absolutely.
No, it's an amazing subject. You know, if you're on the line, ladies and gentlemen, to get in on the conversation, still plenty of time to talk about this subject. And if you're just joining us, if you're out there in cyberspace and just happen to be tuning into this powerful signal, Talk Radio 77 WABC, our guest has been and will continue to be, and proud to call her a friend, Dr. Carol Lieberman, the doctor who helps you stay sane in an insane world, and not taking it lightly, Doctor, the pain that people have gone through this entire week, the reminiscence and remembrance of the 24th anniversary of 9/11, and the very, very sad event that happened in Utah, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a cruel and despicable act. That's horrible. But we'll continue on the other side of the heartbreak, Doctor, and talk more about this because, you know, you have so many areas that I think are so relevant here. So the book that we're talking about is what? Coping with Terrorism, Dreams Interrupted?
Well, Well, that was one of my, that was a book that was published in London for their 9/11.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me get it straight.
But my current book is Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror.
Well, let's talk about that when we come back from the break and more about ways to stay safe in the world from a person who knows this and any other inspiration that you can give us for the loss for so many people whose heart still continues to ache and all the pains that we experience, ladies and gentlemen, from 9/11 and the pain that's happened here in the nation with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We'll be right back, and we'll continue here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Protesting is good, but healing is better. We need to see America heal. The words of Alveda King. 32 minutes after the hour, the Dr. Sky Show continues with our special guest at the top of hour 2, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Doctor, it's fascinating. The phone lines light up here big time. So in due respect to the callers, let's say good morning to Igor in New Jersey. You're on with Dr. Lieberman. How you doing this morning?
Greetings, Steve. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to ask her if she felt that there were any reasons that there are perhaps some great commonalities between three assassins. The one that was associated with the United Healthcare CEO, of course, the most recent one in Utah, and, of course, the young man in Butler. They were all described as being very bright. They were also described as having a very technical background, computer science. In this case, as you know, he wanted to become an electrician in Utah, and the young man in Pennsylvania also had a very technical bent to him. I was wondering if there's anything about that group of people that she thinks perhaps doesn't know how to deal with their frustrations, or is perhaps even more frustrated and, they take it out with a gun.
Great concerns.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. The parallels are interesting. And, of course, one major parallel between Luigi Mangione, who shot the, allegedly shot the CEO, he wrote things on bullets, denied, the three, I forget what it is now, but denied, deposed, and something else. And the one who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk also wrote things on bullet casings that that had some significance. Like it was like he was against fascism. One of the things had to do with furries. The people who believe that they're animals, and so. But it's interesting that I think that probably was copycat to, send messages on the bullets, just like Luigi Mangione did. I was talking before about how the Thomas Matthew Crooks from Pennsylvania, how his parents were social workers, and the mother of the man who shot Charlie Kirk was also a social worker. Now, I'm not saying all social workers are bad. I'm saying
precisely right. Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, for all of them, Luigi Mangione. Actually, we don't know very much about Thomas Matthew Crooks, even though it was so long ago, and yet there really there hasn't been a lot that's been revealed to the public. In any case.
Oh, you're so right, Doctor. I mean, what happened? The body was cremated almost instantaneously, right, Igor? We never found out who this guy was. Right? It's amazing. Go ahead, Igor. Go ahead.
Also, his parents they were pro-Trump. They had signs on their lawn pro-Trump. The Butler, Pennsylvania guy, and same thing with the man who shot Charlie Kirk. That his family was very Republican and loved Trump. So I think, and his father was a sheriff, and I think there's some kind of rebellion in there for that's a common denominator. But. And yes, whether there's an issue with technical things, engineering or computer tech stuff. I mean, typically people who are into that kind of stuff have problems with other people in relationships. Like they like, dealing with tech because that's a solitary job typically, and these are people who are like loners.
More introverted in many senses, right, of the word.
Yeah.
More introverted.
So, so it's an interesting, I don't have all the answers to that, but I think it's an interesting comparison.
Igor, your follow-up before we move on? Thanks for calling.
Yes,
I appreciate your time.
Yes, I appreciate it. Yes, no doubt. I think you're on to something there. I think it leads to people, again, who cannot deal with these feelings and opinions in a way that is civilized, obviously, and works out with debate and things of that nature, that it ends up, of course, in a catastrophic situation. Appreciate the time, Steve. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Igor. Appreciate you being part of the show. Let's say good morning to Tony in New Jersey. Tony, you're on with Dr. Lieberman. How are you this morning?
Thank you so much, Dr. Sky. Hello, Dr. Lieberman. Great topic tonight. I wanted to just ask you a question, and then I'll go into my comment. You know, it seems to me with the rise of the, you know, what we're seeing with these sort of terrorist killings, we don't see so much of the serial killings, and that was just aside what. So if you want, you could comment on that. But what I wanted to say about the terrorist activities that we're seeing now, and you could comment on that as well, is there's so much malaise in our country. Is it preoccupation? There's almost like we're not attentive, we're not alert, we're not somber, we're not sober, and all these things are happening in a higher frequency because we are in a state, you know, the general public is not in a state of being somber and alert. So I just wanted your thoughts on all of that. Thanks very much.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, in regards to the terrorist, activity, terrorists, you know, America has become incredibly complacent about terrorism because during COVID, when we were locked down, there weren't major terror attacks, and that was because we weren't at concerts and we weren't in the street, and so there was this pause. But terrorists were still recruiting during that time. So they didn't pause. I mean, they only paused doing their typical kinds of attacks in America. There were plenty of terrorist attacks in Europe and now in Australia and in Africa. So they didn't stop in those places. But, I mean, they paused there too. But during the time of their pause, they increased their recruitment. So that would mean that we have more domestic terrorists now here too. And as far as, what was the other part? Tony,
you're still with us?
Oh, about whether we're so somber and all that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we're not quite getting back to COVID. We're not quite, and also the impact of 9/11. We're not as clear as we once were, and a lot of us are feeling helpless. And the antidote to that, getting to your questions, is the antidote to that, the way of feeling better. First of all, 9/11, the anniversary, does typically bring back a trigger memories, and does bring back, like PTSD, does bring back some symptoms. And so, if people are feeling some symptoms of PTSD, you know, having trouble sleeping, feeling very anxious, feeling depressed, you know, then I suggest going for therapy, even if it's just sort of crisis intervention. And
that's interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as far as the antidote to feeling helpless or feeling anything, feeling depressed, the antidote is doing something. Is doing something about what it is that you're upset about. So, like, for example, the antidote, well, I'll give you a good example. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this kind of thing on your station, but I feel very strongly about this, so I'll do it and you can bleep me.
Hey, we'll give it a try.
One of the things that New Yorkers can do, and people actually all over, in regard to where they are and who's running for what in their area, but certainly New Yorkers should not vote for Mondami. Zoran Mondami is, if not a terrorist himself, certainly a terrorist sympathizer, and there's all.
Well, I was going to get to that, Doctor, because I wanted your opinion on that to the largest audience, obviously, one of the, if not the largest city in the United States, to see what's happening in this mayoral election. So please repeat that again, so I don't interrupt and everybody can hear what you have to say.
Sure. I mean, if anybody would have said, you know, right after 9/11, if anybody would have said that 24 years from now you're going to vote for a terrorist sympathizer as mayor of this city, they would have said, you're kidding, no way, that would never happen. And yet at this moment he's leading the other candidates. And this would be the end of New York. And as I said earlier on, my heart is still in New York, so it really bothers me.
So is mine, Doctor, even though I'm here in Arizona and everybody listening, you know, that's another story. But no, you're right about what you're saying here. I mean, concerns of common sense. How could that be? I mean, that says what? That tells you either the polling is wrong or something's inherently wrong And I'm not the judge here. I mean, I'm just saying, wow, the facts speak for themselves, don't they, in this particular case? And that's sad.
Well, yes, and some of it has to do with his promising all these ridiculous things that he won't be able to deliver. Like he's promising free buses, free after-school care, free this, free that, and it's a bunch of baloney.
Of course, it won't happen. It can't happen, right? It can't sustain.
People asked him recently, well, how are you going to do this? And he didn't really have a good answer for it. He's also incredibly anti-Semitic. He talked about if Netanyahu came into New York, he'd put him in jail. And I don't know how Jewish people could vote for him.
I don't understand it, Doctor. It's a strange subject, and let's pray that smarter heads prevail in what we call truth, justice, and the American way. Tony, we haven't forgotten you. We're up against the break here, but you get the last word here if you had a quick comment before we go to break.
I just love what Dr. Lieberman is saying. I think it's very healthy for us, and it's a tribute to Charlie King to be able to speak vocally about how we feel for God and country. So God bless you, Dr. Lieberman, and thank you for being on tonight.
Well, thank you, Tony, for joining us, as always, on the Dr. Sky Experience. That's amazing, because if that were to happen, then look at how that could transform itself into major other cities, because then what would happen? The whole thing's like dominoes. And, I'm an American. I'm a proud American, just like I'm sure most people who are listening, if you are. But the point is, that's not sustainable, and I don't know. That's a strange situation. Doctor, we're up against the break. We'll be back, our last break of the 2-hour show. But still, ladies and gentlemen, if you're holding like Alexi in Queens and others, the number to still get in on conversation is 1-800-848-9222 as we move this radio show through time and space with our helmsmen that navigate this signal way out into the universe, both Tony and Bill. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Healing is a matter of time, but is sometimes also a matter of opportunity. A quote from the great Hippocrates a long time ago in time and space. 47 minutes after the hour, we wrap up our show. Sadly to say, ladies and gentlemen, still time, though, for you to get in on the conversation. 1-800-848-9222. And our tribute to legendary actress of film and stage, a good friend of mine who's passed on to the infinite, Carol Channing. Doctor, we continue with you and also with our callers here. It seems like you're getting tremendous amount of response, which I would imagine. Subject very important. Let's say good morning to Alexi in Queens. If you're still there, patiently waiting, you're on with Dr. Lieberman. How you doing?
Good morning, Dr. Sky, and good morning to your guest. I'm pleased to speak. Here is the deal. Very simply, you go back to human history 6,000 years ago. What was the first terroristic act committed? Cain slew Abel, he murdered him outright. That's terrorism, no? You go forward through the other civilizations, all the way up from the Egyptians, all to the Romans, the Greeks, and so on, into the present day, the Middle Ages, and then into the present day, and nothing but terroristic acts done against the average peoples in those cultures. Horrific things. And what I am leading up to is this. The psychiatrist, that is. You are a learned woman. You're apparently very accomplished. You're very intelligent. I compliment you, of course. The thing is this. What I suggest you do would be of great benefit to humankind. If you would sit down and create a paper and publish it, a paper defining precisely what is terrorism. Use historical examples or whatever. Then go further and say what acts in particular constitute terrorism or could constitute or lead to terrorist behavior.
Well, Doctor, there's a challenge right there from Alexi. Sorry to cut you short there, sir, but we want the good doctor to respond.
Well, to some degree, I have done that in my books, Coping with Terrorism, Dreams Interrupted, and in my book for children and the grown-ups who love them, Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. I talk about, even for kids, it's important for them to know. Well, in that book, first of all, the first half is for grown-ups and the second half is a picture book for kids. But I talk about the idea of the terrorist doing this because they want to please their God, that a terrorist is like a bully on the playground. I talk about the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, why we go through, or why we used to in any case, go through TSA to take our shoes off and everything else, and talk about some of the reasons. I don't really, I put it in gentle language, but I don't leave anything out. And talking about this is to the Allahu Akbar, that this is to please their the God, to please Allah and all of that. And how, just like the bully on the playground, how they want us to do what they, do what they tell us to do, to believe what they want us to believe. Because that's the whole thing. When terrorists occupy a country, when they occupy the planet, to occupy the West, it's to get everybody to become, all the non-believers in Islam are going to either have to convert or pay a tax, the jizya, or they kill them. And they want us to live under Sharia law, all of these things. And people, if all the Americans did understand just the details of what they plan for us, they'd be more upset about and more interested in doing something. Like, for example, all the people who crossed our border in the last 4 years. There are cells all over, terrorist cells all over America. They are the people who were protesting on the college campuses saying gays for Gaza and pro-Palestine and all of that. They are essentially the useful idiots of terrorists. They follow the terrorists. So we have terrorists in our streets, and people have to wake up to that and then also start building some resilience, making themselves physically and psychologically healthier, stronger.
Yes.
So that we can face all of this.
Your passion comes through extremely, laser focused on this. But Alexa, you have the last comment or last bit of information that you could give us in a short order, because we are the clock rules here. But continue on if you had a last quick comment.
Yes, I come from a Eastern European country. The forms of terrorism were veiled very carefully. You could not discuss it with other people. Things that the government and the bureaucrats would do were inexcusable, humanly inexcusable. The point is they got away with it because the people were sedentary in their thought. They just simply fear. There is no reactivity. They do not react and say, I will not take this anymore. Like the one in that movie Network, the guy screaming, I'm not going to take it anymore.
Exactly. Right.
This is as hell and not going to take it anymore, yes.
And in America,
what a classic line. What a line. Yeah, there you go.
If I may, in America, the general population of this country, I am shocked. They are pacifistic. They turn away when they see a woman getting beaten by some man in the street. The men turn away, the women turn away, and what do? They flip out their camera phones and always make a hot video, man.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this, Alexi. Look, you're saying stuff that's so powerful, just like the good doctor. People need to wake up about all these situations here. Alexi, God bless you, and thank you for being part of the show. But not to cut you short, Doctor, this is fascinating. I wanted to ask you in the last few minutes of the show, maybe something, because I'd like to do this again with you. Is that okay? I mean, someday we can talk more.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I appreciate you. So here, and I know the listeners do, obviously. So what I'm going to ask you is, give us something for the people that have suffered so deeply with the 9/11, these things that have happened this week. Give us some inspiration from your side of the equation as a person in the psychiatric study. The first bit of inspiration is what I was saying before.
to realize that you need to do something. Don't just sit back and feel sad or feel anxious or feel, whatever it is that you're feeling, feel worried that we're under attack. I mean, I am trying to tell people to wake up and realize that we're under great danger, but not to hide under the covers. First of all, we need to make our homes a stronger nest. The terrorism is threatening all our families, and the best thing that we can do is make stronger nests, make our homes stronger nests. In other words, take care of each other better. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make sure that I give out my website where people can go and see. There's a lot of things, but one of the things they can see is the music video that every anniversary of 9/11, and I did it yesterday. I send out a music video on a mobile billboard. Maybe some of the listeners saw it going around Manhattan, and also it went to Yankee Stadium last night.
I didn't know. Wow!
We saw it at Yankee Stadium because the president was there, of course.
Yes.
So if you go to my website, terroristtherapist.com, you can see the videos that I created for this year, the past years, and so on. I also created one for October 7th. But anyway, if you look at the 9/11 videos, the first years, they were warm and fuzzy. Last year and this year, they're not just warm and fuzzy, but they're more getting people to a call to action, getting people to understand why we have to be much more aware and be doing something about it, calling for our leaders, our politicians
you say it so
do
well.
more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Doctor.
Because it's not just the attacks in the street or at the concerts. It's also what terrorists have done is to climb up through through the media, through our educational system, and through our political system to reach high over the years. Since 9/11, they've been being in these purposely trying to get into higher and higher positions in these areas to be able to control us that way. And that kind of goes along with what your last caller was talking about, that it's very surreptitious. You don't really, it's not just...
You're right. And people, Doctor, that come from other countries that lived under the oppression, the oppression that they lived under, communism or socialism, they know best. And their words, obviously, living in this great nation, we need to keep it great. Doctor, I hate to cut you short, but thank you so much. If you want to get another book that I think, ladies and gentlemen out there, we really didn't talk a lot about, it's Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror, wherever good books are sold. And, Doctor, we're looking forward to having you back here. You and I should talk offline sometime soon. And thank you for your inspiration here, and blessings to all those that lost loved ones. I can't even imagine what that's like in 9/11 and the sad truth of the assassination of Charlie Kirk this particular week. A very sad and despicable act. Thank you, Doctor, for being with us on the Dr. Sky Experience. All blessings to you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick sky report. We talk about that, obviously, as we move into the beautiful month of September. The equinox just less than a week away, meaning what? Sky conditions should improve as the weather systems move out, not only here in the west, but also across the nation. The moon now moving on to its last quarter phase. The planet Saturn high in the southeast sky around 10 p.m. That's the only bright object you'll see with the naked eye, about 800 million miles away. Lots of other things, and we'll talk with the good doctor about her experience, how she stopped a NASA rocket launch, something to do with advertisement about a movie called Last Action Hero. More fascinating things. Anyway, if you'd like to email me, it's simply drsky@wabcradio.com. And ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow as we move to Saturday midnight to 2 a.m. Sunday morning Eastern Daylight Time, stay tuned for an exciting 2 hours with producer, director, and writer Darcy Weir. He was there. He's going to be talking about the latest UFO in the Congress, the congressional hearings, and all your questions about so many of these paranormal subjects. And how about the UAP or UFO that allegedly the military tried to fire a rocket, a Hellfire missile, and it bounced off the roundy thing, moving at incredible speeds. So many things, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about here on the Dr. Sky Experience. And if you do have questions, or we should say even suggestions, I should say, for guests on this particular archive, we always welcome those. My email, simply drsky@wabcradio.com. And my wish to each and every one of you, peace, happiness, and health as we continue to move through time and space on this little planetary object that Carl Sagan called the pale blue dot. Maybe there's ways that we can all figure out how to get along. We'll see you in less than 24 hours.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?